Welcome guys to another one of my videos. Today we'll be watching Alexander the Great Part 2, Part Dos. Now, the first part, right away, if you haven't watched me reacting to the first part, go back to my channel, you can find it quite easily actually. Quite a Chad, man. The guy's a fucking badass. The guy fights, like, his whole story, the way it's portrayed, and listen, granted it happened so long ago, so, maybe things have been exaggerated. I don't know if if everything that was said was from a primary source in terms of information, in terms of how verifiable it was, but his story, man, what a story, you know? The guy, he's about to get his head cut off. His helmet saves him, and then he's about to get stabbed in the back. His friend cuts off the assailant's hand off, the whole hand, with the sword. What? The whole story is fucking amazing, and I'm gonna watch part two all the way to part whatever, and then I'm gonna we react to the Napoleonic Wars because they're my favorite wars that I've reacted to. They're so interesting, so intriguing with all these different marshals and the different battles, different personalities. It's amazing. I've already reacted to the series on my own without reacting on my channel, but I'm gonna I'm gonna make a reaction in the future, and I'm gonna see that it's a re-reaction. Don't worry about it. Let's see this.
In 334 BC, Alexander, the 21-year-old king of Macedonia, led a coalition of Greek forces against the greatest power of the age, the Persian Empire. He led an army of skilled veterans, at its heart men of the Macedonian phalanx, armed with the 18-foot sarissa pike, and the elite horsemen of his companion cavalry. Together, at the Battle of the River Granicus, they'd won a first decisive victory over the Persian army. Now, as Alexander approached Sardis, capital of the Persian province of Lydia, its commander surrendered without a fight.
Smart.
But before Alexander could advance further, he needed to neutralize Persian naval power. Persia had a powerful fleet with major naval bases around the eastern Mediterranean that could potentially cut his lines of communication back to Greece. Rather than challenge the Persians at sea, Alexander decided to attack its nearest bases, the Greek coastal cities of Miletus and Halicarnassus. Both put up determined resistance, but were taken by winter. Following the spring of 333 BC, Alexander continued his advance into Lycia and Phrygia. At Gordium, he was shown the legendary Gordian Knot. A prophecy said that whoever could unpick it would rule all Asia. Alexander simply...
Don't tell me. He's shown a freaking legendary knot. Whoever unties it is able to rule the region. Don't tell me.
Took his sword,
yeah,
and sliced it in half.
What the f? It works, I guess.
Meanwhile, Memnon of Rhodes, a skilled Greek general in Persian service, led Persian warships into the Aegean and captured the islands of Chios and Lesbos. But after Memnon's sudden death and illness, the offensive was abandoned.
Illness? Man, imagine the illnesses of back then. Like 300-400 BC. You break your leg, decapitated. Well, decapitated. Amputated. If you can, like, the pain, there's no anesthetic. Good luck. You're in the middle of the field. Bacteria. Who thinks about that shit? Then you don't have a leg anymore. You're fucked. How did people survive back then? That's, no toilet paper. You take an army of 40,000 people in the middle of the fucking desert. No toilet paper. No bathrooms. Oh, the hygiene alone, the smells. You know, as much as I would like to like go back in time to like the Napoleonic era or even before, that is something I think about more than it's like an epiphany I had at some point because I was thinking to myself like how cool it would be for me to reincarnate myself in the time of Napoleon or the time of Henry VIII. You know, as a noble, not as a peasant. I'm not a fucking masochist here, but the hygiene would kill me. You know.
18 months had passed since Alexander's army crossed the Hellespont and invaded the Persian Empire. Now Alexander led his men into Cilicia and was soon poised to cross the Nur Mountains into Syria. But then the main Persian army, led by King Darius III himself, emerged behind the Greek army to the north. Darius was determined to trap and destroy Alexander's army, which he outnumbered almost 2 to 1. So he blocked Alexander's only escape.
So he had like 80,000 men? What?
Route by moving his army to the coastal plain near Issus, just 6 miles wide, from mountains to sea. The narrow battlefield would force Alexander to fight, but it also prevented Darius exploiting his huge numerical advantage. His army, by some estimates, was up to 100,000 strong, and contained some of the finest soldiers in his vast empire, including 10,000 of his own household troops, known as the Immortals.
I mean, if you're gonna have a name as cool as, I don't know, the Immortals? What a cool name for like your best soldiers, the Immortals? What? Just for the name,
cavalry,
just for the sake of the name alone, they should have won. They should have won. I mean, the name alone.
Massed on his right towards the sea, where the ground was better for horses. His best infantry, his Greek mercenary hoplites, formed the center. Persian infantry formed his left wing.
So we'll see a little bit of Greek on Greek action here.
Alexander deployed his own army for battle, once again entrusting his left wing, nearest the sea, to Parmenion, with the Greek cavalry and infantry. In the center, as always, was the Macedonian.
Thoughts. I'm sorry I'm pausing so much, guys, but the only way I see Alexander winning this is because the other guy has twice his numbers. The only way, because he can't, because the pass is so narrow, he can't just outflank him because he has to use the advantages that he has, which are the pass is narrow, so he cannot put his whole army to envelop Alexander. He has to fight basically one-on-one. And one way to basically gain the best advantage is to gain access to the river, to the whole river, fight him in the river.
Phalanx. Alexander positioned himself and his best troops on the right wing toward the mountain slopes. His elite Agriane javelin throwers, his archers, and behind them the Hypaspists and the companion cavalry. When Alexander saw the strength of the Persian cavalry facing Parmenion on the left, he moved across his Thessalian cavalry to reinforce him. Despite his overwhelming numbers, Darius held his position behind a small river, the Pinarus, and waited for Alexander to attack.
At least the king is not a moron.
He didn't have to wait long.
Alexander's going in!
Alexander called out to his men, urging them to fight bravely, picking out some by name. Then, at the head of his army's right wing, he charged. Once again, the speed and shock of the Macedonian advance sent the enemy reeling back. But in the center of the battlefield, the Macedonian phalanx was in trouble. In its effort to keep up with Alexander, its formation had become disordered. Now, in fierce fighting with Darius's Greek mercenaries, the phalanx was slowly being driven back. Alexander, seeing the danger, regrouped and led the companions in a headlong charge straight at the Persian center. The Greek mercenaries threatened on their flank were soon in disarray, and the Macedonian phalanx was able to resume its advance. Alexander fought his way towards the great king Darius himself. Rather than face this apparently mad and fearless Macedonian king, Darius fled the battlefield in his royal chariot. Meanwhile, the Macedonians...
I thought, him coming with like 8,000 people and making smart decisions, waiting, not attacking, bringing the immortals, he was gonna be like, you know what, let's square up, let's fight here, you bitch. The guy pussies up.
The Macedonian left wing under Parmenion was in a desperate fight against the best of the Persian cavalry. If the Persians could break through here, they could envelop Alexander's army and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. But Parmenion and his troops fought doggedly and continued to hold.
This guy Parmenion, I've been hearing about him throughout his video. To be honest, I forgot him past video. Sorry about that. Is he the one who cut off the assailant that was about to kill Alexander? I don't know. But dude, the guy works, man. Dude.
Hold the Persians at bay. As the news that Darius had fled spread among his troops, they abandoned the fight,
of course,
and tried to save themselves. The battle turned into a massacre.
Imagine the
Ptolemy, one of the Macedonian commanders, told Alexander there were so many Persian dead, his men had used them to fill a deep ravine so they could cross over it.
What the fuck?
The Battle of Issus was a stunning victory for Alexander. And amongst the spoils of victory were Darius's wife, mother, and 3 children.
How the fuck did that happen? Did he went to battle with them?
All taken alive and well treated by Alexander.
I'm betting he fucked a wife.
With the Persian field army in retreat, Alexander now turned to subduing the western territories of the Persian Empire. The next year, 332, the coastal cities of Phoenicia submitted to Alexander, ending Persian naval power in the Mediterranean. But the island city of Tyre resisted.
What?
Tyre's defenders fought bravely and skillfully, even when Alexander began building a causeway to the island, protected by 2 giant siege towers, which they counterattacked with fire ships. But after 7 months, the city walls were breached and Tyre fell. Most of its citizens were killed or enslaved. Gaza, too, was taken.
So it's basically, surrender and you'll be free, or resist and you're dead.
By siege. Alexander continued to Pelusium on the Nile Delta, where the Persian governor of Egypt surrendered the entire province to Alexander, along with the royal treasury. At Memphis, priests of this ancient land welcomed Alexander as their liberator from Persian rule, and crowned him pharaoh.
I didn't know that.
At the mouth of the Nile, he founded a new city, Alexandria.
Does it still
Then
exist?
travelled to the desert oracle of Siwa, where according to some accounts the priests welcomed him as son of Amun, king of the gods. Alexander returned
Random?
east to Tyre, where in 331 BC he received news of trouble back home.
What happened?
Despite his great victories over the Persians, many Greeks regarded Alexander as a tyrant.
Ooh.
King Agis of Sparta, with Persian support, now launched a revolt against Macedonia.
Of course.
Antipater, Alexander's commander in Greece, was already dealing with rebellion in Thrace. But he quickly marched south and met Agis in battle near the city of Megalopolis.
What happened? Is he a badass? He bitch slapped that bitch, right?
Even the legendary Spartans were now no match for Macedonian military power.
Man. Fuck the Spartans.
The Spartan army was crushed. King Agis himself was among the fallen. With his base in Greece secure once more, Alexander advanced towards the Persian heartlands, seeking a final showdown with Darius. He received a letter from the Persian king offering him a fortune in gold, his daughter in marriage, and half his empire in exchange for peace. But Alexander's stunning victories, all the oracles and acclamations, had now convinced him that his destiny was to rule the world.
Nah.
He
He wasn't giving that up, man. He hasn't lost a battle. I mean, why would he be like, you know what, you're right, I'm gonna take half your shit?
rejected the Persian king's offer. He didn't want half the empire.
He wanted all of it.
He was coming to take it all. Research and artwork for this video comes from Osprey Publishing's extensive range of books
What's getting exciting,
on
man? What the fuck?
Every Osprey book examines a...
Dude, this video was amazing. I love them, you know, short and quick. But, dude, the guy, by like in a few years, he went from being like the king of a coalition in Greece to like basically owning, you know, all of Anatolia and, you know, what's now Jerusalem, Syria, Egypt. What? Alexandria. He even made his own city. Dude, I mean, the guy's a legend, you know. He had 40,000 troops. He was fighting against 80,000, and he just bebopped and he did it, you know. I mean, good for him, I guess. Dude, you know, even though like he ended up dying very young. Eventually, I know that. I know he ended up dying of a disease when he was fighting in India. Um, I know that you know his empire or his name or his family didn't last 1,000 years. You know, he didn't have a dynasty that lasted 1,000 years, but his name remained all this time. I mean, it's 2021. We still talk about him. You know, it's so interesting. As I was talking about, you know, yesterday, how certain names, certain people are getting remembered. Others, you know, I'm sure there has been, you know, rulers that were, you know, as impressive as Alexander, but their name is just, you know, forgotten or not talked about. Or maybe they were impressive in other areas other than, you know, military conquest, which is the most exciting. You know, if you're an impressive administrator who gave peace to his kingdom for 40 years, yeah, you'll be in the history books, you'll be praised, but nobody will be like, "Ah, I know who this is." Of course, no. Anywho, thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it as much as I did. I'm gonna do another reaction quite soon, tomorrow, or on part three. Um, and then I'm gonna start doing other reactions. World War One coming, Napoleon coming. There's a lot of shit coming. Tell me if you like a little bit of entertainment videos, a little bit of me reacting to, trying not to laugh or what have you. So I'll see you guys later. I hope you enjoyed this video.